Normalt skulle jag köra på svenska, men den här gången kör jag på engelska. So first of all, you heard that song, MacGyver. So not only that it was done the year I was born, 1985, but it has been part of my childhood for a long time. And the reason is, basically you could give MacGyver anything, a piece of rubber band, matches, and they would create something out of it. And it has been, and it's something that I've learned from family and from my background, is use what you have and use your disadvantages for your own advantages. So my name is Zakaria Hersi, and I'm the unwilling entrepreneur. And to go back to my background is the country of Somalia. Somalia, for the past couple of 4 years, has had the strongest currency versus dollar. There's a company called WorldRemit that got $100 million from Accel Partners that invested in Facebook, Dropbox, Spotify, and invested in WorldRemit that is started by a Somali who saw the need of creating digital remittance platforms. A lot of Somalis are outside of the country of Somalia, of course, because of the war, but they also rely on sending back a lot of money, and these are these type of concepts that are around. And the last part is, we have had almost 20 years with any functioning government, but it has also made it to telecom operators being able to, without regulation, create more competitive solutions. So we're a cashless society, basically. None of the transactions that are being done in Somalia now are with cash. But I don't think a lot of people know that. I think most people know about this. And this is the preconceived opinion regarding Somalis. It's Captain Phillips, it's Black Hawk Down, and it's a lot of negative aspects. And I've been living in Sweden since I was 7 years old, so basically grew up in Sweden all along. But it took me a while to understand that I was not Swedish until I actually became older. And the Somali minority group in Sweden is the second most discriminated minority group in the country, just after Romas. And the reason is it's Afrophobia and Islamophobia. And the sad part is small things, subliminal things that have actually created this negative opinions regarding Somalis. And the saddest part is just a couple of days ago, Aftonbladet, and it's the responsibility of the media of finding positive stories, then negative stories, went out with a doctor's story regarding Somalis have an IQ of 70. But they didn't check the source that the doctor was actually talking about mental patients that he was handling. So that story just went out and went viral. So this is the issues that are creating the fördomar, basically, here in Sweden. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm going to actually talk about how I got to where I got to now. And it started back in 2007. So, except that I was studying in school, a friend of mine, this shady-looking guy called Ali Majid, studied in KTH and had 2 degrees in electrotechnique and another degree, I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he's also a Mensa member, meaning he is smarter than 98% of the population, and he has actually done a test for it. But he was jobless. He was working as a baker in Delicato and a telephone seller on Teleperformance. And he did a summer internship in Ericsson. So after a while, he came to me, and basically he couldn't sleep for a couple of hours, saying that he came up with an idea that could compress data in real time. If that sounds familiar, it's the TV series called Silicon Valley. So we played around with the idea and said, okay, let's contact Ericsson. Ericsson looks at it and says, it's a good idea. we'll offer you a job, and we'll offer you 150,000 crowns, and we can take over the process and put a patent on it. But there was no guarantee of how long you'll get the job. So we said, probably, they're trying to screw us over. So we decided to start a company. And that was the first company we did. It was called Captus Innovations. So, sorry about that. So basically, we assembled a couple of friends together. Myself, Somali origin, another guy, Palestinian origin, and Ali, who's Iraqi. So basically, we would call ourselves the rejects of the job society. So we started working, and we pitched this news and this concept to a lot of people. We got some exposure on the newspaper, but straight away, the likes of Ericsson went out with it and basically tried to blast us out by saying this is not relevant and this doesn't work. And we got a lot of backlash online, calling it snake oil. But we had some people who believed in us, and it was called Sting, and we got to join their incubation. And during that period, I realized starting a company, it's complex, but it was a beautiful thing because we got to meet people that we usually wouldn't meet, like different mentors. I still remember one person that we met was Jane Valerud, who was part of helping Klarna get their financing back in the days. And it created the urge of, okay, entrepreneurship is something where it doesn't matter where you come from or how you look like. It's what type of ideas you come with and how you can actually pitch for it. So we did it for 2 years. It didn't work out too well, unfortunately, but it gained us experience on, especially for me, giving me the urge of doing something and running it myself, instead of going to the traditional way of applying for a job and stuff. So I did a decision end of 2009 to move to Nairobi, Kenya. And I went there, and within 1 week, basically, I found the office of the Swedish Trade Council in Nairobi, and I knocked on the door, and I basically asked them, do you guys need help? I'm Swedish, I come from this region, and I'll work for free. So luckily, there was a smart boss called Johan Marcus, who basically took me on board and told me, it was June, July, he gave me a list of Swedish companies in Sweden, and I was supposed to cold call them and tell them if they would want to order a market research report of East Africa. You know exactly what happens in July in Sweden. There's not a lot of people answering the phones. But I was sitting there 7-8 hours nonstop, calling, and I got a couple of people to sign on the reports, and that was on a Friday. Monday, he told me to come and start working. So I started working there, and it gave me good exposure of exactly learning how negotiations is being done, but also gives me oversight regarding the market of East Africa. So during that period, I was working there for 6 months. There was a period where East Africa was being connected to the sea cable, meaning prior to that, all internet connectivity was done by satellite. So basically, 2 megabytes would be costing 20,000 crowns, and you would need to have a satellite, basically parabole, on the top of your roof. So when the sea cable was being connected, I was looking to find a router, but I couldn't find a router. So I look around, and I found one manufacturer, and I contact them. Do you guys have a distributor in Kenya? They said, no. I'm like, okay, can I order one? Yeah, but the minimum order is 100. Ah, that's bad. But I ordered 100, and I got 100 routers. I bought the yellow pages and had an old phone, and basically called every single computer shop that was selling all type of solutions, and I managed to sell that router and keep, of course, one for myself. But that also grew into these computer shops were starting to sell it to hotels. Hotels wanted a larger network, and that grew into me starting officially my first company by myself. And it led to, for the first year, starting that company and grow it to a revenue of almost 5.1 million Swedish crowns. And we even got the likes of Millicom, Tigo, basically Kinnevik, to also sign us on that we could actually build up networks for them in Rwanda. And we had a couple of projects in Uganda, in Kenya, and a couple of other countries in Africa. So that was a super exciting time, but there was something still missing in me. I left university, I came to Kenya, and I never actually pushed it to do something in Sweden. So I did that decision to sell off the company and move back. So I moved back to Sweden. Now we're in 2011, and this is the first time actually. I actually show this officially to anyone. And this is a screenshot basically of me creating an email address that changed my name. The reason is I came back from Kenya thinking it's going to be good. I'll start applying for jobs. I start applying, and I noticed straight away it came from, marketing managers to CEO assistant, all the way to trainee. But I'm not getting any responses. And it was tough. And it was tough explaining it to friends. It was tough explaining it to family. So during a period of 2-3 months, I actually told my parents I found a job, but I don't have a job. So every morning, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., I would step out, go out in the cold, and wait outside the library, and stay there from every day until 5 p.m. applying for jobs every single day. And I would go back home, tell how wonderful my day at work was, and do the same thing again and again and again. So basically, I went into depression, and I actually tried to figure out why is this happening. So basically, I knew if someone would actually open my CV, they would actually probably think I'm a not interesting person, but see who this guy is. But how come no one is replying or actually contacting me? So I decided, okay, let's see it from a perspective of a recruitment firm or an HR manager. Unfortunately, here in Sweden, the first priority is how you will interact with your fellow coworkers, basically in the fikarummet. Second would be priority, what type of asset are you to us in the company? Comparing it to the US and UK, they'll see you as primarily what can you bring to the company, let alone how you fit in the other team. Second of all, recruitment firms. Have had issues with recruitment firms for one reason, is because they'll never understand the vision of a company. They will always go for the easiest shot for them, or the one that they know they will be able to get commission on. And as Zakaria Abdulkader is hardly a person that you will think this one, let's take a chance and put it on this person. So I created the email address, and I removed Abdulkader, and I put it on Zakarias. Zakarias is a very typical Finnish name. Hersi, depends if you know, but still neutral. Sent 2 emails. I got 2 requests for interviews. And it was that day when I realized that there's a structural problem with the job market in Sweden. So instead of actually, okay, I didn't take those jobs, by the way. But I decided, okay, let's try a different approach. What would MacGyver do, basically? So I decided to basically go contact different startups. And there's one startup called Corsio. And Corsio happened to win Internet World's one of the hottest startups for 2012. But when I met them, basically they were looking on, it's an e-learning system, and they wanted to look on how would they expand. Basically, the first year I worked for free. But that's the best thing I ever did, because it gave me the dignity that I wanted. To be able to work again, to feel important. And what I also got back from that is they gave me the opportunity to look at and do other things. I provide them my experience, the values, and look at international markets for them. At the same time, I was able to use and channel my own experience doing things that I care about. And one of the things that I cared about is the questions about Somalis in Sweden. Once, like I think yesterday we had Ben Jones who was speaking here, and you need a loving environment. If you're being bombarded every time about you're useless, you're bad, you're parasites, it does take a toll on you. It takes a toll on your self-esteem. But I was wondering, was I alone? Luckily, there was this organization where we created, just by Facebook, up to 1,000 members of Swedish, Somali origin who were studying. We have people who are engineers, doctors, teachers, and we would meet up and talk about our experience. That grew into something very beautiful. It grew into that we did volunteer programs, help sponsor students in Somalia. We did inspiration lectures for the different Somali communities locally. And that was also the period where there was a drought in Somalia. So we were able to collect almost 350,000 crowns and send it to Somalia, together with other organizations. So we were on Nyhetsmorgon, we were at PS3, but there was a couple of guys who contacted us, and it was Philip and Fredrik. Philip and Fredrik is what the media should be. Open and to be able to talk about positive things. They have done it throughout. They have done it with Trevligt Folk, and they did it with us back in the days when they were doing breaking news. And when they contacted us, we thought it would be a normal way of talking about the droughts, but they didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to actually inform the Swedish viewers about what makes Somalia different, like what kind of food do you eat, what music. So Philip calls me on the phone, and he says, hey, I also want you guys to translate Niklas Strömstedt Sista Morgon into Somali. And he said, okay, do you know that song? I'm like, yeah, sure. And the second problem is I'm not good in Somali. So I had to call a friend and basically within 2 hours find a YouTube clip and translate it so he could actually sing it. So he sang it in the program. And that was one of these initiatives where we were able to push out positive images regarding Somalis. And it meant a lot. And it gave us exposure, and it gave us, until today, I still think it's a key thing. There's a lot of minority groups that build up this country. And it's very important that we need to keep on uplifting it, because in the end of the day, we'll still get it back as a country. So once I was done doing that, I got a request from a close mentor of mine. He knew that I was very engaged in different projects and such, but he said there's a company that will probably need someone like you. And I asked him, okay, I'm not interested now, but he says you need to really talk to them. And the company was called WEBBDA. WEBBDA was basically working with Blocket and also other clients that have been part of the Blocket concept that Schibsted has taken basically globally, in France, in Italy, in Brazil, and in Mexico. So I was basically responsible for building up offices outside of Sweden for WEBBDA. So they decided, let's focus on building up an office in Colombia. And again, like most of my colleagues at work, everyone had their preconceived opinion regarding Colombia. And this Netflix series called Narcos doesn't exactly help it. But it was like, yeah, don't go to Colombia, it's guerrillas, it's drugs and stuff. But in the end of the day, I come from Somalia, so that shouldn't be an issue. So I moved to Colombia, and within the first 3 weeks, we were able to open a center and employ around 45 people. And I don't speak a word of Spanish. But it became the best experience that I've ever done, because Colombia is the most wonderful place you could ever go in your life. They are wonderful people. So did that, built it up, and found great colleagues that could speak both Spanish and Portuguese, because we had the two type of clients with the different markets. Also opened up office in Mauritius. It took me to my last part now. Nigeria. So currently I'm the managing director of everything.com. Everything.com is pidgin English for everything. So it's basically a blockhead concept that has been taken to Nigeria. And we were the first marketplace that basically physically verified every seller, because there's an issue with fraud. There is no database for social security number. There is nothing. So we had to physically verify every single person. On top of that, when we physically verify every person, we actually moderate every ad. I've been doing it for the almost 1.5 years now. We're 180 people. We became the top 3 shopping app in Nigeria. And it's been a great experience, and it has given me a lot of things back. I've received awards and stuff, but for me, it's still one thing that matters for me the most. It's still the situation, what's going on in Sweden now. And I'm pleading to you guys all, there's a lot of people who have gone into creating the person I am now, and it is the person who basically, the police person who decided to learn Somali, and when my mom came to speak to her in that language, the person in Migrationsverket. Sweden is a wonderful place, but we're closing our borders and we're closing our hearts. And if we do so, and I wouldn't be here, and there wouldn't be companies called Truecaller, Klarna, Servicefind, the people who have immigrants' background that would have created these great companies that are Swedish and giving it back to us all. So that's my plea to you guys. Leave all your preconceived opinion and open up your hearts. So thank you.
Tack så mycket för att du berättar för oss om din väldigt personliga resa. Tack. Jag känner att jag bara vill lämna oss där med ett öppet hjärta. Tack så hemskt mycket, Zakaria.